Let's explore Toronto's stock exchange listed pot stocks for those interested in exploring the cannabis sector. Hello, I'm Rachel Jones and you're watching Kalkinemedia. Now, cannabis sales are soaring, with the S&P TSX Cannabis Index rising by around 6.02% over the last year. Let's look at some interesting stocks. Firstly, Aurora Cannabis stock prices dropped by almost 15% in the previous 6 months and dipped by almost 2% in the past 3 months. However, Aurora Cannabis stock has surged by more than 38% over the previous year. It appears to be in the recovery phase as it has risen around 14% in the last month. The Edmonton, Alberta headquartered producer saw its net revenue from the consumer segment decline by 45% year on year to $19.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2021. Now, this dip was primarily caused by reduced orders due to lockdown restrictions. However, in the latest quarter, Aurora has recorded a net revenue of $35 million in its medical segment, reflecting a year-on-year surge of 9%. Next up, Canopy Growth Corporation. At the current price levels, this pot stock was almost 77% below the 52-week high of $71.60 reached on February the 10th this year. However, the stock also noted a recovery of almost 1% in the last week. On the financial front, Canopy Growth posted net revenue worth $136 million in the first quarter of fiscal year 2022, up by 23% from the same quarter a year ago. The company also reported a total cannabis revenue of $93 million, indicating a year-on-year growth of 17% for the first quarter of 2022. And then there is Tilray. At the current price levels, Tilray had slid by more than 83% from its 52-week high of $67 on February the 10th. However, Tilray stock has soared by almost 65% on a year-on-year basis and expanded by around 34% on year-to-date. The cannabis giant saw its net revenue soar to a value of $168 million in its latest quarter, reflecting a year-on-year surge of 43%. So some market experts note that the Canadian cannabis market possesses a significant growth potential as its neighbour in the south, the US, mulls over a federal decriminalisation of recreational weed. However, investors should consider the risk. Macroeconomics and microeconomics factors are likely to impact the sector and stock market environment before taking any investment decisions. Now, if you like this information, please press the bell icon for notifications for our latest videos and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I'm Rachel, signing off for Kalkinemedia.